Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'll go ahead and call to order the Board of Trustees for the town of the city of Bloomington's Township meeting. And we'd ask you to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, if the clerk would take the roll, please.
Thank you. Trustee Kearns? Here. Trustee Mosley?
Here.
Trustee Motney? Here. Trustee Straza?
Here.
Trustee Hendricks?
Here.
Trustee Ward? Here. And Trustee Scott?
Here.
Trustee Brady, sorry.
Here.
I started to hear a whisper and I'm like, oh, I'm looking down too quick.
Yeah. And do we have public comment tonight
We
for the
received,
trustees meeting?
we received no emailed public comment, nor did anyone register to speak in person.
Anyone else that's in the audience that wishes to speak to the public trustees meeting? Okay. Thank you very much. Then next to the consent agenda. Is there any items that trustees have looked at that have a question or issue with? Removal? No? If not, clerk, go ahead and take a vote on the consent agenda.
I'll move.
Thank you. Well, our nomination is second.
Second.
Okay, seconded by
Right,
trustee
and we will,
Traza.
we'll vote electronically and it's ready. You can go ahead.
Good.
All right.
No nays to report, I mean. All right, then to the regular agenda. And it looks like reports by our elected official, Township Supervisor.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
We've had an uptick in emergency assistance, especially in our office for the past month because LIHEAP has run out of money. Usually this is a typical graphing. You could see that, and I can show it to you sometime in the future, that each year you see the ups and downs, a couple of variations, but it's pretty similar. When LIHEAP exhausts its funds, Township general assistance is required, and then it goes back and forth. So it's not atypical, but it's busier in the office. The other thing I wanted to mention is the city of Bloomington Township is collaborating with Normal Township right now because they have a full slate of new people, including a new intake person and a new caseworker and a new bookkeeper. So what we're doing is we're training them for how to run the intake and the case management right now. And then they could also ask our bookkeeper for some assistance as well if they need that. This partnership aims to align practices between the townships, so it's a good thing that will be in unison. A lot of times we haven't been that way in the past, and that is dependent on who's running, who's the elected officials are. But this is a good thing. I have a good relationship with the Normal Township supervisor, not that I didn't before, but they're seeking our services and we're here to provide it so that we have uniformity in what we do. And they're learning from the best. So, and I think that's all oh no, the one other thing that I wanted to draw your attention to was the memo about seeking the funding, and that's in your board packet under the request for payment for 110,000 for the bridge program. So that's all I have.
Are there questions or comments from trustees?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I saw that you had mentioned the utility assistance, but that there wasn't any in rental assistance for the month of June. Is that normal? Is that just like processing things or
Yeah, that's normal. I mean,
it just hits at different times.
Yes.
Based on,
There should be, was there no rent?
it just
Didn't-
said provided $0. It's in the memo part, maybe in the budget part.
Let me
it's
look real
different, but I
quick.
just noticed that.
For general assistance, we always have rental assistance needs.
It was for the HERE program.
The here, oh, yeah, that's just coincidental,
Did you-
not,
Okay.
it just didn't happen this month. I mean, the criteria has to fit, and it just didn't, there was more utilities because of heat going up.
Other members, other trustees that have a question or comment? If not, will you let the record reflect, Madam Clerk, that trustee Lee is here? Okay. And any other questions? All right. If not, is there a motion to accept the report? Or, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Good evening. Just so we know, it might sound like a broken record. I keep talking about how the assessments keep going up based on the sale prices that have been of the houses that have been selling. I've been higher than the assessments over the past 3 years. So we're seeing strong adjustments again in the EA on our adjustments on assessments for 2025 as we're finishing up. We have some done, but we're still concerned about if we got enough adjustment to the properties as we're doing them. In the past, the county's added a multiplier to the whole city, a large adjustment. We're trying to avoid that for 2025, but if you see the sequence in the report, it seems like we're never getting as high as the county wants us to get to. But so we may see another spike in the assessed value for 2025 moving forward.
Thank you. Any questions? Comments from trustees?
Yeah, just real quick.
Trustee Lee?
How big of a spike are we talking about?
It depends on location, unless it comes from the county. The county does the whole city. We're doing by neighborhood, different segments and use code, commercial properties and residential. So we've seen some at 10% assessment increase. Some stayed even, but the county's predicting 10% overall that we should get
Okay,
to.
thank you.
I have a quick question.
Trustee,
So I had one neighborhood kind of alert me to the fact that a lot of their properties are being acquired for investment. This is a neighborhood that's traditionally owner occupied, and now, it's people are coming in and purchasing and holding for Airbnbs and rentals. Is there any visibility from your role into what that trend might be like? I know in other communities, that's been a significant factor with significant portions of their real estate actually being purchased by investors, especially when the cost of funds are so high for borrowing for people who want to own their own home.
It wouldn't come from us. Our point is a 2-story home at 2,000 square foot is selling for this amount of money. So that's where it's valued at. If it's used as an Airbnb, it's still in a residential neighborhood. A 2-story home at 2,000 square foot, it's going to be similar value to the other. If it draws down the values, it takes 3 years to trend those values being decreased in order to start adjusting it downward. So we haven't seen any decreases because of that situation. And typically we wouldn't know if it's an Airbnb unless maybe exemption was removed or the property owner didn't live in the property and we had evidence of that. So it's kind of like somebody saying, hey, my neighbor's an Airbnb and he's got the general homestead exemption. Why has he got that and he shouldn't have it? So those things should be addressed with the county get that exemption removed so that they don't get that advantage.
I think what other communities is seeing is somewhat the opposite of that, that this is actually inflating the value. So the investors are coming in and buying these homes. So I was just curious if that was contributing even anecdotally to some of the increases that we're seeing.
That's what I'm saying is if it's an investor purchasing the property and there's an exemption on it, then the assessment's going to get reduced by the exemption and pay less in taxes. If it doesn't get the exemption, it pays more in taxes. Is that what your question is? Or are you saying that since they're buying these properties at a higher value than they would expect, they're still getting appraised by an appraiser what our job is to appraise the property also. So that drives the market itself, the secondary.
It was really just a curiosity question from your perspective and your vantage point, as in other communities across the country, they're actually seeing their property values increase because of the interest in investors coming in and buying up the properties. So, but I think you've done a good job of kind of sharing where your seat is and visibility that you may or may not have into that. So thank you so much.
Any other questions or comments from trustees? Anything else from either of our supervisors that would like, or assessor would like to make a comment on your reports? Okay, since I don't need for the reports, I will take a motion though to adjourn
I'll move adjournment.
by trustee Hendricks,
Second.
seconded by trustee Mosley. At 5:42 PM, we'll conclude the Bloomington Township trustees meeting. And thank you very much. can go ahead and call the meeting of the Bloomington City Council on Monday, July the 28th to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag and ask everyone to stand for the pledge and then remain standing for a moment of silence. Clerk, if you call the roll, please.
Councilmember Kearns.
Here.
Councilmember Mosley.
Here.
Councilmember Motney.
Here.
Councilmember Straza.
Here.
Councilmember Hendricks.
Here.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
Councilmember Lee.
Here.
Councilmember Scott.
Here.
Mayor Brady.
Here. Thank you very much. Then we are not going to have, in the absence of Councilmember Dannenberger, will not be remote tonight, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. And then no recognitions or appointments this evening, is that correct?
That's also correct.
Okay, thank you. Then we will start with the public hearing on the annexation of agreement with the Keiser Farms for property commonly known as 502 Lutz Road, consisting of approximately 74.5 acres as requested by the Development Services Department. And at this time, we will call to order the state and time, the hearing. And if there's testimony you'd like to give, a report, I think our Director of Development Services, Kelly Pfeiffer, will go ahead and make this opening remarks.
Sure, thank you. So
Thank
this
you.
is a public hearing about an annexation agreement for the land at the southwest corner of Lutz and Morris Drive. It's contiguous to the city limits. The intent of the annexation is to facilitate a multifamily development on the north side near Lutz and Morris, which is actually can be served by water and sewer. South of that would be a solar farm. So the solar farm would be zoned ag, the northern part R3 to accommodate that. So the annexation agreement has provisions for our typical tap-on fees. There's no waivers being requested. They're just delays of certain things pertinent to development.
Okay, thank you. At this time, then we'll open the public hearing at 6:03 PM. Is there individuals for public comment, Madam Clerk?
We had no one registered to testify at the hearing.
Okay. If not, are there any other closing comments or remarks from your department, Kelly?
No.
Okay. Any members of the council have questions or comments at this time? Okay.
Alyssa wanted me to let you know the applicant is here. If you wish to ask the applicant questions directly, this would be the time to do that.
Any members' questions? Okay. If not, then we'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:04 PM at this time. Thank you very much, ladies. And we'll move forward to any other public comment. If there's anyone that wishes to address the public comment to the council at this time, obviously it's an opportunity for speakers to provide their views and feedback to the city council. It's also an opportunity for the council to listen and hear diverse points of view to maximize the impact of public comments and show respect for the expression of all views. Speakers should maintain stability and focus on city issues. Speakers must identify themselves for the record, but are not required to give their address. Each speaker is given the floor for 3 minutes, and the council does not respond or engage in debate. Any of the speakers that engage in disorderly behavior will be denied their time of remarks. So at this point, would you like to call anyone that's here to speak?
Yes, so we have 3 people registered to speak. We will start with Thomas Whalen, and then to follow will be Daniel Taylor. And just for the record, we received no emailed public comment.
Thank you. Mr. Whalen?
Is it on?
It is.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, former
Mayor,
councilman.
Council people, I appreciate you listening to me tonight. I'll try to be brief. We're talking about a missing sidewalk on White Oak Road, but I want to lead off with, I'm right across from O'Neill Park Swimming Pool, and we love it. And I want to thank the city for putting that in and taking care of it. It's a wonderful asset for us. But the problem is people are coming from on White Oak Road and they're walking in the street. They're biking in the street. The pictures I've showed you, one's at one end, one's at the other. It's 160 feet of sidewalk that's missing. 8 years ago, and Danny will talk about that a little bit. 8 years ago, the city came to us and said, we're going to redo all this sidewalk. That didn't happen. They said, they stayed in communication with us. The state's going to take care of some of it, and then we're going to take over. Well, the state did, and they did a wonderful job. The problem is they left 160 feet of sidewalk missing. And you can see the lot has grown up. And I'm telling you, those pictures were taken about 10 days ago. It hasn't been mowed yet. The people are having to walk in the street. And I talked to a contractor today, and he told me that a ballpark figure is less than $10,000 to do that sidewalk. When I called the city, they said, well, we're going to try to get that on the 2027 list for sidewalks. Well, folks, I'd hate to see if the city of Bloomington gets sued because there's no sidewalk and people are walking in the street. Babies and kids on bicycles. It's very, very dangerous. I could have taken a lot more pictures, but I didn't spend a lot of time over there. Danny's dad took some of those pictures. But it's a big problem. I don't know how we get it moved up on the agenda or on the sidewalk list, but for the city's sake, for the kids' sake, I appreciate your time. I think we need a sidewalk, and I don't think that's that big of a deal for the city of Bloomington. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Tom, next.
Yep. Next up, we have Daniel Taylor, and then our last person will be William Gustafson.
Hello. Thank you, Mayor and Board. In addition to what Mr. Whalen said, I live on the opposite side of White Oak Road across the 1600 block of West Locust. It is considered, I consider it to be an excessive amount of distance to cross from my side of the street to the handicapable ramp that's actually located on Locust. And with the lack of maintenance in that lot, I had taken a picture on my phone right before we left, but just like Tom said, that grass it's corn high. I just about saw a 3-car pileup this morning. The lack of lane usage, turning, stuff like that. People try to cut the corner very quick. So like I said, to support that, at least we had a slab of concrete before the construction. I know where they had to drop the gas line and everything, and White Oak was under construction for quite a while. UCM has been up and down that section, so I'm not sure why we couldn't have coordinated with them to get, that sidewalk relayed. In addition, we said some of those pictures are my father's house. 8 years ago, he was requested or required to remove his fence from his property line by the sidewalk and his deck. I talked to engineering about 2 months ago, and they said that it was it was documented, but there was no time frame to get his sidewalk that he was promised because he had to move his fence and his deck on his own time. So I would like to see that get adjusted as well. If you can knock out both pieces of sidewalk at the same time, it'd be, I think, beneficial. The safety, everything like that. So, like I said, in support of what Tom said, hopefully we can get that taken care of and addressed. Okay.
Thank you very much,
you.
Dan. And certainly we'll have staff follow up on the issues that you're speaking of. So thank you. Another Public speaker?
We have William Gustafson. I don't see him here, though. So just for the record, he registered to provide public comment, but is not present in the meeting.
Thank you.
That'll be all of the public comment.
Thank you very much. So no other comments. We'll go ahead then and move to the consent agenda. Are there any members of the council that wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Member Motney?
I do, please. I'd like to remove 8K and 8L. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members? Okay. If not, can we go ahead and take the vote on those items on the consent agenda, please?
I can move.
And make a motion. and then
I'll move in
second.
support of the consent agenda with the absence of item K and item L.
You have a
Second,
second?
second.
Second, by Member Kearns, thank you. To vote? Thank you. Go ahead and take the record then. Thank you.
Yep, there's no nays to announce.
Member Mani, if you'd like to speak to the item you asked to be pulled.
Yes, I asked these two items to be pulled. It's come to my attention that over the last couple of years or more, we've been approving a ton of changes to local zoning code on the consent agenda without discussion. And since it's my understanding, we have planned an extensive discussion on zoning code issues in August, I suggest we table this and include this discussion at that time. While I understand that some of these changes have been planned without regard to the consulting report that we received in the month of May, they are of a similar nature and have significant impacts to some of our neighborhoods for the future.
Any questions or comments from other members?
Yeah, just
Member Ward?
a point of information. Are you tabling to a date certain?
August 18th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members? Is there a motion on the floor then?
I'll motion that we table this item until August 18th.
Second to the member's motion?
I'll second.
Second by Member Lee. We go ahead then and
Could I
take
ask
the
a
vote.
question? Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Staff, could
Member
you
Hendricks.
just briefly say, I thought for the most part, many of these are pretty minor changes, some changes to building heights, but nothing major, but maybe I'm reading into that incorrectly.
Them minor. One of the reasons that we're bringing them forth is because over the last couple of years, we've seen that there are some inconsistencies between stories and heights, for instance, where we'd have a height, but we'd have stories that were less, or vice versa. So when it came to the predictability and the buildability, we're trying to rectify that. But the fact that some of this may help some development, which is why we're trying to bring amendments to you, I'd call that kind of significant. So it does not have anything to do, I cannot speak to whether it has any correlation to the study in May. We were told to table that, we have. So I haven't analyzed it for that, but I wouldn't say they're minor, some, not in K and L.
Apologies for
That's
the
okay.
language. Yeah, didn't mean minor and not significant.
Member Ward?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. One, if this were to be tabled until the 18th of August, would that throw a wrench in anything that's actively on the table being considered?
Yes, and I wasn't aware that we had other zoning conversations that were going to happen at that August meeting. But we do have 4 ADUs that are hoping to be built. And we have a townhome development that would like to progress into design, as well as an apartment complex that would like to progress into design, but without these amendments. that would not occur. So whether a couple weeks is a big difference, probably not, but going beyond that, I would be concerned about whether they would engage in design.
And then my second question is, can somebody remind me, is August 18th a regular meeting or a committee of the whole?
Committee of the whole.
Yeah.
So then a point of order, we're supposed to be tabling items for a date certain. We wouldn't be able to vote on this at that meeting. So I guess I question whether it's in order to table it to a committee of the whole meeting, because the city code, correct me if I'm misinterpreting that, city attorney, does say that you have to table an item to a date certain.
So just to be clear, I would be happy to table it until the next voting meeting, providing that staff revise and remove references, for example, to removing lot size minimums and other things of that nature that were included in this proposal. And as I've looked at the zoning, and thank you, Kelly, for responding to me earlier today when I inquired about some of the zoning questions that I had, there's a profound impact to many areas of our community with some of these changes. And I'm just going to read out a handful of the neighborhoods that I'm talking about here. Most of Founder's Grove, all of Royal Links, most every neighborhood with the word Eagle in front of it, including the most recently built Eagle View Estates. Many neighborhoods across this community are impacted by a lot of these zoning changes that are being put forth in what I'm going to use the term incremental fashion over these zoning code amendments that we have voted on the consent agenda. And I have been remiss at not taking more notice of those until these issues have come up in stark contrast with stark implications for the future of our community. That's why I'm asking that these not be placed on consent agendas, and that we place these where we can have robust discussions about what our vision is for this community for the future from a zoning perspective.
Thank you, Member Motney. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Member
one quick
Scott.
question. Just confirming, I saw these both passed unanimously, the planning commission, am I right there? Okay.
So do
So-
you want to, I'm sorry, go ahead, member.
As a former planning commissioner, I would like to comment on that. When things are presented, and you can correct me, Kelly, if I'm wrong on this, when things are presented and looking back at the minutes and at some recordings when recordings previously had been available to us, they're presented generally that if it meets the criteria, they simply are passed, and then it's up to the council to have the discussion and determine what we want to do with them. Is that the direction that the planning commission was given on these items?
The plan commission has to hold the public hearing. And they have to make a recommendation to you, but their purview is a little narrower than yours. You are the policy level decisions. So I would have to concur with what Sheila is saying, is that their role is a little bit more narrow and limited. And that having a discussion on some of these items may not be a bad thing for council to have.
Member Kearns, did you have a question? I'm sorry. Other members?
Yeah, I
Like
just,
to-
I
go ahead.
did. Oh, I'm sorry. My question is, I know there was a
Member Moses.
ask of the city attorney, and I just wanted to see his response as well.
So, section 208A 5B11 addresses the motion to postpone, which is what this is, a motion to postpone to a certain time of day. The motion allows the council to postpone consideration of an item to a specified day. It does not mention a voting meeting. However, if it's committee of the whole, we do not typically vote on substantive matters during the committee of the whole. So the motion should be to postpone to one of the voting meetings, whether it be in August or whenever, but that's my answer.
Member Motney, then do you want to
I
change the
can-
motion?
I would be happy to amend the motion then, and I would offer two different options, whichever the council would have the appetite for. One would be to the next voting meeting. Option B would be to the meeting immediately following the next committee of the whole, where we would have had the opportunity to explore in depth our vision from a zoning perspective, rather than, again, continuing to look at these things in a piecemeal fashion. And I'm open to either one of them, and I would be happy to revise the motion accordingly.
So we need, procedurally, we need a motion for one or the other. It's smoother.
So Member Motney, if you would make amend the motion to reflect a specific date.
All right. I think it would be most prudent to have it after the discussion, so I'd like to motion that we table this discussion until August the 25th, following our committee of the whole meeting.
So motion on the floor. It's a second.
Second.
Seconded by Member Lee. Madam Clerk, will you take the vote? I'm sorry.
We can go ahead and vote electronically.
Madam Clerk, if you go ahead and read the no votes, please.
Councilmember Kearns, Councilmember Ward, Councilmember Hendricks, and Councilmember Scott. So we have 4-4 vote. And so the mayor will vote.
I'll vote in
Oh.
favor of the motion.
Vote in favor of the motion? Okay. And so then it would be postponed until the meeting, August 25th.
Thank you.
And
Any
ju-
other items? Go
Sorry,
ahead.
just for the record, I want to point out that that was included for 8K and 8L. Thanks.
Thank you. There's no other discussion, then we'll move to regular agenda. Correct? And under the regular agenda, we'll go to item 9, which is consideration and action on a resolution authorizing the annexation of the agreement with Kaiser Farms for property commonly known as 502 Lutz Road, we spoke to earlier. The ordinance annexation property commonly known as 502 Lutz Road, containing the 74.5 acres. And so if there's not any other comments or questions, Manager Jurgens, do you have anything to point out on the item?
I do not. This is just following the public hearing, and I'd recommend we turn it over to Kelly and the council if there are any other questions.
Kelly, is there anything else from the previous public comment you'd like to now
Yeah,
comment on?
the public hearing was directly related to the annexation agreement. So I just like to remind you what's in front of you right now is the annexation agreement, as well as the petition and the zoning map amendment. So the zoning map amendment and the annexation agreement are forwarded to you with the unanimous recommendation from the Plan Commission. The petition is also included. It would be immediately annexed.
Thank you. Ready to vote?
And
Any
let's-
questions or comments from anyone else on the council? Nope. We'll vote.
Motion.
I will move in favor.
Second.
Can you tell me who my second was? Sorry, I didn't catch it.
Right
Thank you. And you can go ahead and vote electronically.
Thank you very much. Got the record?
Yep, no nays to announce.
Great, thank you. Next on the regular agenda item is under 9B, is consideration and action on an ordinance approving an amendment number 1 to the intergovernmental agreement, revenue sharing agreement between the County of McLean, the City of Bloomington, and the Town of Normal, amending 39-1104 of the Bloomington City Code as requested by the Administration Department. And City Manager Jurgens, if you'd like to speak to the item for action.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. Phil, if you could go to the next slide. Before I dig into this, just want to make a couple preliminary comments. I think there is so much good and exciting things in what we're going to talk about tonight. We are at this point because for a lot of different reasons. Part of it has to do with the fact that the county was able to secure grants that was used for some of the original intended purpose of the shared sales tax agreement. So before I really dig into this, I want to thank the county for their work on this. I want to thank the town. And I want to take a moment just to kind of step back and talk about kind of the when, the why, the what, and the where, and how we got to this place and what this is really about. But I wanted to start it with, I think this is a really positive story, really for all of us, for the county, the city, and the town. If you go to the next page, and I apologize, I'm going to have some basketball analogies in here, but I know that's how I could get to Coach Mosley. So at a very high level, what's the game plan here? So I think everybody's aware the county has over $20 million in its fund balance from shared sales tax money. So what has been discussed over the last several months and what's being proposed in the amendments tonight, and we'll get into that into a little bit more detail, is doing a 1-year pause in payments from the town and the county, or from the town and the city, while the county would continue the obligations. They would, of course, be using the fund balance, the $20 million, to continue their operations going. This would equate to about $3.5 million that instead of the city sending over to the county for this year period, that the council would have the ability to direct how that money should be spent. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of minutes as well. The game plan is also over the next year to take a look for the county, the town, and the city to get together and talk about the change in circumstances. We'll talk about what those are in a minute, and to evaluate what changes, if any, are needed to the IGA, which is now hitting its 10-year point, its halfway point. We have about 10 more years to go on it. As part of this, there's also an audit planned that will help show where all the money's been spent, and that will help us plan for what we need in the future. Next slide. So let me start by saying what this is not about. This is not about the city, and I think I can speak freely for the town as well. This is not about stopping support for community behavioral health initiatives. In no way is this about that. This is not about the city trying to pull out of other obligations that it has with the county, whether it be for the bonding or for some of the other purposes in the IGA. Next slide. And I think it's worth saying twice, this is not about pulling out of or stopping the funding for behavioral health initiatives. This remains a high priority, I think, of everybody on this council. I know the town has talked about it being a priority. I know the county has it as a priority. I have been told, and I believe, that the communities that have designated funding for behavioral health are the communities that get ahead of those issues and that really have an impact. So this is something in the meetings that we've had with the county and the city and the town, we have continued to talk about. We like the fact that there is secured funding and a funding source for these programs, and we want that to continue. Next slide. So if it's not about that, what is it about? It's about the $20 million balance that has been built up in with the fund from the county. It's an opportunity to pause those payments and potentially use that for other priorities without seeking more tax dollars from those in the community. It's about addressing changes in the IGA based on some of the changes in circumstances. And it's about ensuring that the community's behavioral health programming is efficient and effective and doing what we intended to do. Next slide. Let me talk a second about when this all started. Ideas started being brought forward in early 2024 to address the in-house situation. At that time, we became aware that the county had a large balance. At least I first became aware of that. And so questions started to come up at that point in time about the potential uses for the balance and what could be done to address the in-house situation. In November of 2024, we started having discussions about the balance and the use of the funds. Next slide. A little bit more specific on the time frame. Again, this started back in with the IGA back in April of 2016. That's when the shared sales tax IGA went into place. In March of 2024, former county board chair Metzger paused the BHCC for a while it was revamped. In November 14th, 2024, that was the first time that the town manager and the county administrator and myself sat down. We talked about the balance, we talked about the use of funds and the potential for some changes. In June 5th of 2025, a notice of change in circumstances was given. Then June 30th of this year, we met the two mayors, the mayor of Normal, the mayor of Bloomington, County Board Chair Johnson, myself, and the town manager and the county administrator met to discuss the change in circumstances and potential changes and a path forward regarding the agreements. On July 11th of this year, the county then sent us the final two amendments that we'll talk about tonight. Next slide. This is taking a step back, what is to be funded under this agreement? There are a couple of obligations by the county. One is that the county is to set up a separate fund that is shall be maintained separately, and all the funds are to go in there. It's to be known as the County Special Mental Health and Public Safety Fund. So what can be funded? And so all of our shared sales tax goes into that fund. And we'll talk about it in a minute. To date, the town and the city have contributed $40 million to that fund. What is to be spent, or what can those funds be used for? The IGA identifies three different areas. The first one is the bond debt, or the debt for the what we refer to as the jail, the expansion of the Law and Justice Detention Center. Another proposed or potential use is related to behavioral health services from that detention facility. And then finally, there's a category for community behavioral health initiatives, such as services and programs consistent with the McLean County Action Plan, and then also the integrated electronic case management system to be used by the town and the city. Next slide. Just share a little bit of background, and this is where we're going to really start to talk about the change in circumstance. So FY16 is a little bit of an anomaly, because that was a partial year. FY17 is the first year where we had a full year of contributions or payments from the city. So in FY17 to FY25, we see a 30% increase in how much money we are paying into this fund. Next slide. And then when we break that down even further to how much are we paying monthly, again, if you look at the average that was paid in 2020 in FY17 to what was the average paid in FY25, again, with FY17, the monthly payment averaged about $101,000. In FY25, it averaged about $263,000. That's a 30% increase. But we'll talk about some of the changes circumstances, and our last payment in FY25 exceeded $300,000. That's a 60% increase in the average payment. And if you go to the next slide, please. So why is this money increasing so dramatically, and what is this change in circumstance? The Illinois General Assembly, and it really started back several years ago, started making changes to the law that modified how internet sales were calculated and what percentage of the tax came back to the city. And so as those changes and those laws began to progress, we started seeing more revenues come to the city via the shared sales tax. That was then meaning more payments were paid over to the county. In 2025, some new legislation just went into effect where we're kind of maximizing out here, but we're getting really the maximum benefit. So instead of a generic formula being used and the city of Bloomington getting a portion of tax based on our population size, it is now actually more tailored to how much are we actually spending and buying online in Bloomington, and we're seeing the actual amount of tax come back to the city. So as you can see on this slide, we're projecting in FY26 that the payment to the county is likely to exceed $3.5 million and to be, again, more than $300,000 a month. Again, going back to when this first started, it was a little over $100,000 a month. Next slide. This slide again just shows when this agreement first started, the county was projecting to receive a total combined amount from the town and the city of about 4.4 million. Today, we are projecting, or at least in FY25, so this is the last fiscal year, the town and the county, or the town and the city provided about $5.3 million. So to address this, we've been talking about a number of different ways to, not only are we paying more, we're paying, $300,000 a month, but then also the county's got a large balance of $20 million. So we're trying to figure out how do we address this? Again, it's a good story. The county's done some things to benefit so that they've gotten some grant money. We're getting more money in, which is a good, story as well. But how do we rectify this? So what we've talked about, if you go to the next slide, Phil, this is amendment number 1. This would be a 12-month pause, at least a 12-month pause in the obligations for the town and the city to share the revenue with the county. And if it goes after 12 months, if the county says, hey, wait, we need this money again for these purposes that we just talked about, then the county can provide notice and the city and the town have to start paying that monthly amount again. There's no risk to the county on that, but the city and the town would at least have 12 months where if they decided we've got other priorities that we want to spend this money on, that the town and the city could do that. Next slide. As part of this, the ordinance adopting this amendment number 1 also changes that language in our city code, which currently says we're supposed to take this money in and then we're supposed to deliver it to the county. It pauses that for that 12-month period. And it says that at a later time, the council will decide how that money is supposed to be spent. So this council will, again, let's assume it's $3.5 million. This council will prioritize how they want to spend that money. Maybe it's for similar initiatives. Maybe it's for a number of the other priorities that the county has or that the city has. But at the end of the day, the idea is that that money could be utilized instead of having to reach into other potential taxpayer dollars. Next slide. The second amendment deals with the audit, fairly straightforward, just provides that there will be an audit of the fund and caps that audit cost of $50,000. Just to talk just a couple of seconds about the audit, this is not designed to be let me rephrase that. This is designed to be a best practice, a check-in. Again, we're at the 10-year mark. We've got another 10 years to go. We have not done any audits of the fund. You probably should have been built here from in the beginning that there should have been periodic audits. Maybe that's something we work on and we agree to in the future to do audits. But I truly believe that this audit and figuring out, how the money is being spent and where it is going will help us shape what is needed for the future. And I'll give an example of that in the next slide. Go to the next slide, sorry. Oh, there was the audit slide. If you go to the next slide, this is not necessarily a simple matter. So the county is projecting to spend another $7.6 million in 2025. That is 24 employees. It's 6 major spending categories. It's 20 individual line items. There is a lot of activity in this fund. And so this audit is going to help us make sure that we're aligning the spending with the purposes and the original intent of the agreement. Again, nothing to suggest anything has been done improper or to, cast concern on that. But I think it's fair after 10 years without having an audit in this fund, we want to make sure that the purposes are aligned. And if there is an issue, to be able to talk about that and realign, make a realignment going forward. So finally, in summary, next slide, Phil. First 9 years and 3 months, the city and the town have collectively put in $40 million to the county for the shared sales tax. But there have been a lot of changes in the law, and the amount being shared continues to increase. The county has a balance that exceeds $20 million that can be used for the purposes of the shared sales tax. The plan that is proposed has no cuts to the mental health initiatives. Again, the fund balance will be able to use for that over the next year. There's a pause in payments at no risk to the county. And then finally, we'll perform an audit that will help provide us with some insight and give the parties a better understanding of what the true needs are. Next slide. Again, happy to answer any questions. I do again want to thank the county staff, the city staff who have worked on this. It's been several months in the making, and we have gone back and forth a number of times. Originally, this started with a 5-year pause. And, when the county would come to us and say, well, that's going to have a negative impact. We eventually got down to the 1 year, at least a year, where we thought there could be a pause and the parties could reevaluate during that time. So again, we appreciate all of the assistance on this from the town and the county. Again, I think this is an easy layup. I think this is a win for everybody. And we come out of this with a better agreement and stronger all across the board. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions by members of the council? Looks like Member Hendricks has his.
I would just start with a motion to approve.
Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
By Member Scott. And we'll go ahead and take the vote.
No,
I'm-
I'd like to,
Can we do questions?
Thought we had the
yeah,
motion, we were going to vote. Okay, go right ahead.
I'd like to make an amendment, propose an amendment. So there've been a lot of informal discussions and assertions in the news and on social media about the proposal before us. And while, thank you, City Manager, for giving us quite a lot of solid background there, I think it's also important that before we move to a vote on this item, that we fill in some of the backstory that seems to have been overlooked. I am not here to argue about how much money is in the fund or what it's already committed to. That's something that I'm hoping that the audit that's being proposed in the next agenda item will address. But I do want to remind everyone that at least part of that money has not been used as intended in a timely way, because the previous county board leadership made the decision to halt the work of the Behavioral Health Coordinating Council without, to my knowledge, any consultation from other members of the intergovernmental agreement. What's more, the previous county leadership rejected out of hand a city proposal for a viable, move-in ready, non-congregate shelter for unhoused persons. Let me be brutally direct here. If those funds had been made available, dozens of our neighbors, human beings in our community, would not have had to ride out last winter's cold, last week's violent storms, and today's heat and humidity intense. But because of the decision of the previous leadership to withhold these funds, people suffered, and they are continuing to suffer. Since then, the leadership of the board has changed, and I am profoundly grateful that the current leaders have made the decision to free up funds for an alternative project so that we won't have a rerun of the frankly shameful debacle of last winter's tent city. But that notwithstanding, months and months have passed without full clarity about how much is even available in the fund, much less how the sales tax revenues dedicated to behavioral health needs will be handled moving forward. Don't get me wrong. It takes time to sort things out when things are arbitrarily shut down as they were a year and a half ago. this might not even be a problem if we lived in some kind of utopian community where we have no behavioral health issues. But I expect that most thinking people can agree that we do have behavioral health issues in our community that need attention. And while it's good news that we have smart people in our community with smart ideas, those ideas need resources. For that reason, I want to make it possible for us to vote both to pause city contributions and make it crystal clear that we are not aiming to simply claw back money to put in the general fund. On the contrary, we need a pause precisely because we need to ensure that we fund behavioral health initiatives in a timely way. That is why I propose that we amend the ordinance by replacing the sentence that reads, "While this suspension is in effect, the city council shall determine the use of the net proceeds." I propose we replace that sentence with the following. During the suspension period, the city agrees to use the pledged revenues normally required under Article 2 of the agreement exclusively for community behavioral health initiatives, services, and programs consistent with the McLean County Mental Health Action Plan 2022 update and any updates, including programs explicitly designed to address behavioral health by providing supportive housing, improving access to behavioral health services in underserved neighborhoods, or reducing environmental stressors. You might ask why, since the paused revenues would go toward behavioral health needs, the city would need to pause contributions at all. To that, I would reiterate that it is still not clear how and when funds being pledged to the intergovernmental agreement as it currently stands, would be available for addressing needs that urgently need attention. An audit, which we'll be talking about on the next agenda item, is a great start, but there is no word on how many weeks or months that process will take. And I, for one, am not convinced that continuing to do what we've been doing will get us any further along to connecting needs and resources in a timely way. Both needs and resources are clearly there. This addition to the pause amendment holds all of us accountable to addressing them as soon as possible. So I would move this amendment as read.
Can I just accept that as a friendly amendment?
Let me go back to council if I could interrupt her for a minute. Did we not have a motion and a second to the motion prior to this motion? And don't we need to vote on the first motion that was made with the second?
You would vote on the amendment. Do you amend? But as Mr. Hendricks has suggested, he could accept that as a friendly amendment, which he's now saying he's going to amend his initial motion to reflect what Ms. Ward has suggested, which would then need a second. And with the second of that, then you can vote the one time.
So to the now friendly amendment and motion, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Member Scott. Discussion and questions from other members.
I just have one question for you, Jeff, before we get to that, and that was the $20 million balance. Does that include any accrued interest, or does that go elsewhere?
I'm not sure. So I've had that question asked before. I'm not sure what interest amount is in there. I had asked our finance director earlier today if the $20 million was in one of our accounts. We're getting about 4.4% interest. That would equate to about $880,000. So I assume that, like I said, they're supposed to be, the money's supposed to be in a separate fund designated for these purposes. I assume it's gathering interest, but I have not gotten the details on that interest yet. Scott, did I say that accurately?
Yes.
Were the numbers accurate? Yeah. So I don't know what interest, but yeah, hopefully interest is getting into this fund as well. I just don't know how much.
I assume sorry.
Hold on just a minute. Does that answer your question, member?
I guess the other part to my question is with this agreement, and it may be getting into too much contract language, but with this agreement, does the interest go into the fund or does the interest go elsewhere?
Are you talking about if, with the amendment, if we pause?
No, not
Oh.
with the amendment, period. So this quantified amount.
No, I think, so the interest wasn't, I'm not sure interest was addressed in the IGA other than it's supposed to be in a separate fund. And I think under Illinois law, there are interest bearing accounts and things like that. So the interest, I would assume, would stay with the fund and be used for the purposes outlined in the IGA as opposed to other like county operations or things like that. But I have not asked those questions and I can certainly follow up.
Answer your question. Member Straza.
Yes, so with tonight, as we're discussing these things, the purpose, of course, the audit will also clarify what Councilmember Mosley was saying about the interest. Where is it going? That's the great thing about audits, is you'll have a kind of a line item thing, an audit trail to where the money has been going, where it's not been going. And again, reiterating what you said, City Manager, is there's no thought of someone's misusing it or anything. There's nothing inappropriate. No one here thinks that. I think it's just, we need to reset the idea of what's going on and where we need to do. And I think this is the thing, is when you have a 20-year commitment, a contract, it needs to be revisited over time. And I'm hopeful that we can all come back together in the future to discuss audit timelines in the future, and also other types of things that we can say that this will keep us more informed, keeps the city, the town, the county, and the community informed of what's going on and how money is being spent. So I think it's important that we move this direction.
Thank you. Member Motney.
So, I mean, I want to compliment you. I think that's an excellent point to clarify, and I think it should be clarified. And I think you made some excellent points about the increases as a result of changes in the state, just as we as a municipality have seen decreases in other areas such as the grocery tax, which we're being asked, continuously to close the gap on. And so as we make decisions like this, I think we need to step back and again, think strategically at all of these issues. They're complicated issues and they don't communicate or convey lack of support for something that many of us very viscerally feel there is a need for in this community. There are a couple of other comments that I want to make. I have a tremendous amount of respect for my predecessor on the Behavioral Health Coordinating Council. I believe she fully supported some of the pauses that occurred in order to revisit the approach. I think it's important to look at how much of the fund balance is being used for internal overhead versus things that actually make their way to the providers who are trying to help those in this community. As it relates to a proposal that was not voted on, I was not there to know all of the facts. However, I will say that it was shared with me that in some cases, when you're making decisions about non-congregate shelters, locating them next to providers who are working passionately to heal people from addiction makes this a complicated, multifaceted challenge, and one that I don't think we can just say black and white, it was a missed opportunity. And I feel I would be remiss if I didn't at least acknowledge that the people I've met in this process, many of whom have been involved in this process, are earnest people trying to do the right thing. I support your original request. I do think there does need to be an opportunity to look at spending and to understand, as Councilmember Straza mentioned, where are we? 20 years is a long time without effective crystal balls or Ouija boards that give you complete and total facts. And the changes to state funding, that have been passed through as a result of an agreement made 10+ years ago does need to be evaluated. And I think it should be a lesson for the future, just as it is a lesson for the future hearing public commenters today talking about agreements with contractors that don't have dates in them, for us to be vigilant in the future to establish checkpoints and address and provide for things that are unknown when we're in good spirit, enthusiastically entering into agreements of any kind. Thank you.
Thank you, and we need to extend time. Is there a member who wants to?
Yes,
Somebody wants to
Okay.
make a motion
I'd like a move to
Members.
extend time.
Second.
Second?
by
Member Mosley?
minutes, or I don't know what you think you need.
10 minutes, yes.
Okay, sounds great. And second, okay, thank you. I'll just
Okay.
quickly call it. Councilmember Kearns,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosley.
Yes.
Councilmember Motney,
Yes.
Councilmember Straza.
Yes.
Councilmember Hendricks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Scott.
Yes.
Thank you.
And now, Member Scott, do you wish
Thank
to
you.
make
Thank you so
comment?
much. I appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
I appreciate that. So this is particularly personal to me, and I'm going to reiterate some of the things other people said, but I'll underline why it's specifically personal to me. So 2 years ago this month, my family lost a brother to suicide. I know the effect and the needs that we have in our community. I know that needs that families have, not only for those individuals, but for others to work through grief. And I want to emphasize that I believe that we I emphasize as well that we and the county and the town share the same values in this. For me, I did a lot of thinking about this, a lot of studying, and I could not get confirmation on one initiative that would be, say, hurt by this pause, which also suggests that we're not getting funds out fast enough. So to underline that we have the same values here, the same goals, and certainly not blaming anyone. It's not anyone's fault. There's certainly all sorts of complexities here and changed over leadership and all that kind of stuff. So I support this pause. I support this time to regroup, to get together, to work with our compatriots on the county and the town to make this successful going forward.
Thank you. Other members' comments? Member Motney?
Would like to ask a clarifying question. So the motion at present includes the amendment, if I understand it. I think we were shown a draft of that amendment earlier, which referenced the 2022 plan. I would suggest that we consider backing out the reference to the plan and perhaps just talk about the behavioral health commitment more generally. Reason being is because that plan is in the process of completely being overhauled. And in fact, I think the draft is done. And I think it's being overhauled, for good reason.
May I speak to
Member
that?
Ward?
Yeah, that was the very reason why the language of the motion is the McLean County Mental Health Action Plan 2022 update and any updates. So it would make room for any further updates.
Any other member? Questions? Comments? So we now have a motion on the floor, second motion, friendly motion, and we had that motion seconded. Are there any members that have questions about that motion? And does have a question regarding the vote? Yes.
I have one
Member
more
Motney.
question for staff. In light of some of the challenges that are being faced with us, for us in terms of, for example, I mentioned the grocery tax issue, which has continued to be brought up. What do the implications of this amendment mean to you? What can we expect the implications of this amendment to mean for those whom we serve in the community? Thank you.
Yeah, I would also offer that we've got other, changes from the state, like the PPRT. I think Scott would say is another place that we're seeing a decline in revenue. So we are trying to figure out, how we're going to address some of these needs. I would also say that we've got, The fact that some of these online retailer changes, they're benefiting us in other ways from our other sales tax. So that is a positive as well. Eventually, though, we are going to have to decide how we are going to, if they continue to be priorities of the council, how we are going to move some of those priorities forward, whether it be for first responders, police or fire, a fire station, parking for the downtown. There's a long list of priorities and initiatives that we need to accomplish. So at some point, there will have to be a discussion about, how we are going to fund those and where that money is going to come from.
So would there be an appetite, would it be worth discussing language in the amendment that carves out these continual changes and the changes, many of which that you referenced, which are resulting in us currently contributing 60% more than what was anticipated and what was previously being committed? I'm just wondering if there's some balance in that, in light of, again, conversely, only the municipalities being impacted by the grocery tax issue.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, are you talking about the amendment offered by Councilmember Ward or
Exactly.
the
Just
underlying amendment?
to stride it, to say, agree, but to the extent there's excess, again, unknowns that have led to this number continuously increasing beyond what the projections were, to the extent that you described, I just am interested to know what that would look like.
I'd probably have to give that some thought. Certainly the council, if this motion it's been seconded, if it fails, then there could be other language that's adopted that, maybe addresses that. I think one way, if I understand what you're saying is to open this up even more. In the original ordinance, it was proposed the council would have this discussion about how the money's to be spent at a later date. Obviously, you would set the priority, staff wouldn't be out there spending it, but you would set the priority at a later date. This, this confines it obviously a little bit more to the behavioral health, to some of the plans and the updated plans, and to some housing needs as well that are tied in there. So, other than opening that up even more, I'm not sure, what other answer I could provide. We could also come back and revisit it in the future, but other than opening it up more now, I'm not sure what we could do.
Well, just a thought I had would be to, again, offset the grocery tax, which is a disparate tax. It's a regressive tax. I think, that's shared view across this group, that perhaps there's some flexibility to at least include addressing some of the shortfall in that arena, perhaps in this.
Yes, and if I understand what you're saying now, you're saying instead of reenacting the grocery tax, which is about a $3 million, will be a $3 million hit to the city if we don't, using this money in place of the grocery tax?
I'm really just talking about the short-term issues.
Yep.
As you guys take the time to step back and not have us solution this right here in the moment, but to give you the flexibility to think through those things holistically without us making a boundary for you that would persist during that discussion. Again, there's been a motion made already and seconded. I don't want to belabor it. I'm just trying to think through unintended consequences that could cause us to come back and be in a situation where we're not thinking about this as completely and holistically as we should be.
Member Ward.
Yeah, I think that's precisely what I'm trying to do with this amendment to this amendment, is to think through the unintended consequences and to eliminate as many of those unintended consequences as possible. When we throw open the door and remove the restrictions on how this money is spent, then there are unintended consequences. And I'm trying to eliminate those.
Any other comment? I'm sorry.
It's fine. I
Member
just wanted
Kearns?
to quickly add that, I agree with Councilmember Motney in terms of there are a lot of unknowns. You know, there was an executive order that came out at the federal level 4 days ago that I think calls into question, you know, how we're going to approach behavioral health issues and housing and how those all interplay, and other ways that maybe public safety comes into the mix as well. And so I think that will find its way to our community. And so I agree that there is a lot of unknowns, and I think focusing on how we can be ready for those is important.
Member Mosley.
Yeah, I just want to add, I support the amendment as it is now. But I want to just point out something that I would caution us to do is, right, I don't want us to look at how we can spend the money until we get to this point. And so I still think, even though I'm in support of this motion, if there's opportunities that we identified through the audit and before, we can revisit this as to where some of the funds can be reallocated. But I didn't want to mix that in because this was really dedicated for the mental health initiatives as written. And so that was where my focus and my vote is going now. But in the future, whether it's next month or months, as we start getting data and then we see opportunities, I'd like for us to be able to revisit this.
Other members, as we need to have more time? Okay. I'd like a point of clarification before the vote to our city manager with the amendment now that's on the floor and the amendment that's in the packet. No matter what is in the future regarding these dollars related to the pause, how they are allocated and spent in the future still would come before this council to make a decision, no matter whatever amendment wording. Is that correct?
That's accurate. So the funds will sit, they'll go into our reserve general fund balance, I believe. And what I envision doing after, assuming this is approved, assuming the county also approves amendment number 1, then we will work to identify different initiatives that fall within these guidelines. And we'll bring those back to the council one by one. And we'll earmark it, say, this is here, we've got that $3 million. This is what we're proposing to spend it on. We'll get your feedback. We'll get feedback from the community. We don't want to just spend money to spend money either. We want to make sure this is going to be impactful. So we will bring the council and the community along as we do that. And if we can't identify things, maybe there's, we're having trouble, we'll come back and tell the council that too. And, then maybe this conversation can be revisited, but we will certainly bring all of those back to the council and make sure they're earmarked and accounted for.
Thank you very much. Any other comments, questions from members? Then we'll go ahead and make a vote, take a vote we've already had a motion.
Yep.
We've already had a second.
You got
So
it.
we should be okay to go ahead and vote.
Yep. All right, there's no nays to announce.
Nice, thank you very much. On to the next item then would be section C, which is consideration and action on an ordinance approving amendment number 2 to the intergovernmental revenue sharing agreement between the county, the city, and the state, the county, city, and the town, requested by administration. If you'd go ahead, Mr. Jurgens.
Thank you, Mayor. I covered everything in the last presentation, so really I'm happy to answer any questions on this.
Are there any questions? Member Ward, first. All right.
Sorry. I do have one. Jeff, do we know the process for how this audit is going to take place? Because I've heard the different parties have agreed to it, but we're not sure where it goes from here and what exactly it's going to look at. So I'm curious, is that something that an RFP or something's going to come back to us? later on to outline that. I'm hoping that we, as an entity, as the city, will have a voice in exactly what that looks like.
Yeah, so we have not discussed that process in detail. I do believe the county has an RFP requirement so that they will have to go out into an RFP. I think, it should be fairly straightforward. We are looking for somebody to go in, take what the purposes are the agreement, identify the expenses and give us a report on that. So in my opinion, it doesn't need to be anything overly complicated or more than that. I think the agreement calls for it to be a third party. We didn't want any of our finance departments to do this and then somebody, be concerned about that. So other than that, I have not personally had any other conversations about the audit.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we have a direct hand in that and what that looks like, and are able to, I don't know if it needs to come back to us to vote, but I just don't want it to be handled by other entities that we don't have a role in that.
Reward,
I'd move approval.
you have a question?
I do
Member
have a question.
Straza?
Yes. So with that, if we go to the audit, I've been through many audits, helped a lot of people, organizations go through audits, and there is a line it takes. First you have to, get an RFP out there, then you have to agree upon it, and then it actually gets conducted. What is the timeline that you're seeing, or when you've dealt with these audits before? How many months is this going to take?
All great questions. I do not have the answers to them, but I can work with the county. I can contact them tomorrow. We are the last entity to approve amendment number 2. So with our approval, we'll be ready to go on this and we can start having those discussions and then I can report that back to the council.
I'll second Molly's or Alderperson Ward's.
So we have a motion on the floor and we have a second to that motion. And if there's not any further comments, we will go ahead and take the vote. No nays to report. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, on to our next item under the agenda, regular agenda, is item D with consideration and action on ordinance addressing temporary parking needs, including authorizing the city manager to execute short-term agreements for temporary parking, to adjust downtown parking rates, and to temporarily modify on-street parking regulations as requested by the administration. If you would speak to that, City Manager Jurgens, please.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm going to continue to be optimistic tonight. I think this is another positive action item for the city and for the community. We probably were going to be coming forward with this in about 6 months. But because of the concerns with the Market Street garage and understanding the council's concerns with putting another $300,000 plus into that garage, which is eventually going to be demoed, we came back after the last meeting, regrouped, and worked hard to come up with another plan. And so that's what this is about. Next slide. So as everybody knows, over the next couple of years, we're going to have a lot of redevelopment in our downtown. The streetscape is getting ready to start that first phase. We were having some redevelopment of some major buildings. The Market Street garage is planned to come down, and that will, take some parking away. So we need to figure out how we are going to expand parking options during this time period. Next slide. We've come up with our plan is basically options, options, options. We want options for the people in the downtown. The first option is to expand on-street parking options. We have hundreds of spaces that are 2-hour parking or 4-hour parking that we're going to move to basically be 24-hour parking. So if you're working in the downtown, you're going to be able to park for free on one of our streets and not have to worry about going out and moving it every 2 hours or something like that. The second part of the plan is to reduce the cost of parking at some of our alternative locations, like the Douglas slot. It might not be the most convenient for some in the downtown, but we've got a lot of space there, and by reducing the costs, even making it free, we believe we're going to have a lot of people utilizing that. And then the final part of the plan is to lease additional parking spaces from private owners, which we're in the process of negotiating. And we think we're going to be able to add a substantial amount there, not just for businesses, but also primarily for visitors. So parking within the buckle that's convenient so that visitors can come to our downtown and continue to shop and utilize the resources there. Next slide. Part of this is going to also be signage. We're going to make sure that people know where to park in this 2-year time period roughly. We're going to let them know that it's free. We're going to, have signage to show them where the lots are. We're going to make sure that people understand this plan. We've talked about doing press conferences. We've talked about doing a separate website for downtown parking. But we are going to make sure people understand this plan, and we're going to make it as simple as possible. Next slide. As I talked about the Market Street Garage, want to avoid having to put another $300,000 plus into that. We're working with businesses and property owners and tenants who rent spaces in there. And I want to thank Senior Deputy City Manager Billy Tyus. He's been instrumental in this. Between the two of us, we've contacted a number of people in the downtown. And frankly, they've been understanding of the council's concern on this. And so they're open to other ideas, and we're trying to give them as many options as possible. Next slide. So finally, what does this ordinance do? It provides me with the ability to execute short-term leases for agreements for parking, limited to 24 months or less. It authorizes me to temporarily reduce or waive parking fees at city-owned parking locations. This again is limited to 24 months unless extended by the council. And then finally, it allows me to modify on-street parking time limits. This is a 90-day time limit unless extended by the council. And the reason for that last little exception is we plan to, like I said, we plan to open up about 250 plus spaces in the buckle, right around the buckle of the downtown, outside of the buckle, almost immediately. And so my plan is to do that, as soon as this ordinance is approved, and to get those spaces in place right away. But then I want to bring that plan back to the council so you guys have full knowledge of it as well, and you can make those changes at least a little bit more permanent, maybe 24 months or whatever. But then also, if we need to adjust on the fly, we can make some adjustments as we need to. So all of this designed to provide temporary relief. But when we say temporary, we're probably talking about 24 months until we get the Market Street Garage back with some parking there. We get the front and center building down with parking there, the more parking at the, Elks. I was going to say Eagles, but Elks, and other parking in place. So appreciate the council's consideration of this. But we think this plan is going to really help address some of the short-term parking needs of the downtown, both the businesses and the visitors. Happy to answer any questions on that.
With that, are there questions from members of the council? Member Monty.
So unless I missed it, there's no boundary in terms of the dollar amount on this?
There is not. We do not anticipate it to be material. The leases that we've been talking about are about $50 a month if we have to enter into a lease for a parking space. And so for some of them, we've been talking about, visitor, we wouldn't charge that. We'd keep that for visitor parking. But for others, if we're doing it for businesses, we would turn that around and charge the business that's leasing the space the $50.
So I just wonder, it seems like we're voting on an item that literally has no dollar cap. Should we put something in there that just kind of creates some boundaries for accountability to the public?
You certainly can. We don't,
What do you anticipate
Billy,
this value being?
yeah.
I hesitate to say because we're still negotiating with a couple of folks, but as the manager said, we're talking. I think we would be safe if we were saying the totality of which is $80,000. But realizing that we probably won't get to that number annually for 12 months. I'm trying to give us room to negotiate
Yeah.
and not say too much.
And my authority under the code already is 50,000. We've hoped it's going to be under that. I wanted to have more of a plan and a formal process in place. And I would, this is not an effort to go out and throw a bunch of money everywhere at all. And I know everybody understands that. But if you wanted to put in place something, I think the more immediate need is for us to get the on-street parking available and to lower the cost of like the Douglas lot. If you want to put something in place where I've got authority up to $50,000 and then I need to come to the council, I think that would be, we can work within that range.
Well, I mean, first of all, I mean, I support what you're trying to do, and I certainly don't want to create boundaries that are going to make it difficult for you. Remind me, I mean, what were we voting on 2 weeks ago that would have reflected the amount you were going to spend just for a feasibility study?
$80,000.
So, I mean, would it be reasonable to set the boundary at that? I mean, since we were really going to just have somebody look at it for that, or, I mean, I don't have a specific number in mind. I just think it would be prudent to have some number included in this.
I have a question.
Any other questions or comments?
I-
I'm
yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
Member Straza.
Yeah, my only concern is with that, putting a number to it. Again, we're in the middle of negotiations and nothing like giving everyone the number that they can aim for. I understand the idea that we want to make sure we don't go above and beyond a certain dollar amount because we want to be responsible for the money that we're spending. It's that weird balance. We're right in the middle of a negotiations, and we're basically telling everyone, here's what our number is, and you can get as high as you want up to this number, and then we have to come back here. So that's the only thing I have the danger about doing something like that. But I understand we want to be responsible with the finances. I do want to commend the team, the staff, the quickness on getting this figured out and getting the parking mapped out. I know you've been working on it for a long time, but really came to it. And I appreciate looking at this more instead of spending the money on the 80,000 for them to reassess the parking garage. And then on top of that would have been all the expense to basically improve it for about 6 months, maybe a year at the most. And then we're, looking at possibly changing what it's going to be there. So I appreciate that part of being responsible in that area and putting the time into it. Thanks.
Member Hendricks.
Yeah, I would agree with Member Straza. And where I come down on is, this is in direct connection to the fact that we as a council didn't want to spend so much on the Market Street garage. And the city manager heard that loud and clear and quickly, very quickly put together a parking plan like this. Parking's the number one thing that I hear in my position as alderman. And it's something that for 2.5 years I've brought up and brought up and brought up. And so for us to make such quick change on this and to do something that's going to be really positive for the downtown, and in conjunction with the fact that city council said loud and clear, we didn't want to spend that much money. I think that the city manager will do his due diligence and make sure that it's reasonable. So I would move to approve.
Second. There's a second by Member Mosley. Any other comments? Not?
For clarification, that's as presented in the packet. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead and take the vote, please.
Right, no
Okay,
nays to
no
a no.
nays. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next item, and that is for executive session. Oh, I'm sorry. We got a report. I apologize. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This is the third of three reports covering the end of FY25. We're still a couple of months away from finalizing the audit. The audit literally takes 6 months. A lot of the complexities related to additional external audits, like the public safety pension funds audits, need to be completed. Currently, we don't even have a draft of the police pension fund audit yet. So What that drives are our pension liabilities that are posted. So there's a lot of moving parts still, but most of the direct activity is complete at this point. So next month, we'll be moving into FY26, and then we'll have a review of FY25 with the auditors here in November. Next slide, please. So none of the numbers have changed materially since the last meeting. So I'll try to be brief. Basically, the total year-to-date variance for these particular categories has come down by about $40,000, and that was utility tax with some adjustments there. So just in general, I probably should have highlighted these, but we've had some very positive changes related to those legislative adjustments the state has made. The city manager mentioned in the previous presentations that is driving home rule sales tax and state sales tax. During the year, we were basically break even and a little under in state sales tax, and we ended the year $1.6 million in those two categories over budget. So that's offsetting, the local use, which is the category that's coming down related to that legislative change. So that $600,000 reduction in local use essentially being offset by $1.6 million positive variance in the sales tax. And then if you want to, you can associate these income tax, which is a tough category to get visibility on. IML comes out with estimates on that, but we had a very, very large final payment for the year that pushed that variance up very, very significantly. $1.1 million positive variance on that, which really helped primarily offset the replacement tax, the $1.5 million decrease. And then kind of a little flash forward, local motor fuel tax, we did finish the year negative 275. That's our 8 cents per gallon. But the last 4 months have shown $20,000 variances over prior year. So if that continues, and we hope it does, that should put us back on track to that annual budget of 4.2 million, because otherwise we were looking at that category coming under $4 million. So right now we're on track maybe to bump back up to $4.2 million for this coming fiscal year. It's hard to tell exactly what that's related to, but thinking some of the completion of the construction on Market Street might be helping that category. So just in general, kind of, flowing into FY26, we're seeing positive trends related to local motor fuel tax and those sales taxes, especially related to that legislative change. So the state's still doing clawbacks and replacement tax, but we did include that in the budget going forward. So hopefully we've accounted enough for that. So right now, pretty positive picture for the city related to those categories. Next slide, please. The general fund income statement. I did not cover this last month, but I wanted to bring it up. This is somewhat of a complex exhibit because we've got the revised budget year to date, revised budget remaining. Where it gets complicated is that use of reserves, the use of fund balance. So that's the way we balance our budget, because we show a use of savings. But as you can see in the year-to-date actual, there's nothing there. So because that's not a real revenue, it's just a budgetary mechanism, so to speak. So kind of just looking over at the projection budget adjustments, you can see that we have a positive $6 million results for the year. 860,000 in taxes, that correlates to the discussion I just had. Moving down, $737,000 in intergovernmental revenue, a $1.2 million grant for the VCPA and the Creativity Center. A big positive variance in charges for services. Ambulance is way up 1.3 million, but that's one of our final accruals looking at bad debt allowance for ambulance fees. But the BCPA for charges for services is up on nearly $1 million. Now, there's an offsetting expense related to BCPA activity related to artist fees and concession, cost of goods sold, et cetera, but it really drove our revenues up. So for this, $140 million projected year-end budget, that matches our year-to-date. But again, just wanted to highlight, that use of that reserves as a mechanism. And the final thing, that $14.7 million use of reserves, we budgeted $8.7 million going into FY25. We had large reserve balances at the end of FY24. So we had budgeted extra equipment, extra capital projects. And then during the year, we added a little $5.5 million roughly for Owens Nursery. And that's what drove it up to that $14.5 million, $14+ million in use of savings. And that's going to be important here in the next slide. Next slide, please. So again, just to kind of talk about the format of this slide, when we talk about budgetary results, we take our year-to-date actual, and you're going to see that that's 144.2 million almost. And then right below that, we have a rolling kind of number there. It shows encumbrances of 4.364 million. So those are purchase orders. So from a budgetary standpoint, we view those as dollars spent. So in our projected year-end column, we're incorporating those POs into that number. So that's why in the expense section of this income statement, our year-to-date and our projected year-end doesn't match. It did match in the revenues, but for expenditures, the projected year-end where we're showing 148.5 million includes the year-to-date actual, real dollars spent, plus encumbrances, POs on the books, and that gets us to the 148.5 million. Moving to the left, you can see that overall, we're coming in about $500,000 under budget in total expenditures. We're over in compensation that was related to full staffing and public safety. We talked about a lot during the year. Loss of that vacancy savings that has a corresponding hit on the benefits. But we made that up. We made that excess up in watching our contractuals. Our commodities came in. We didn't have complete control over those. Utilities, we thought utility expenses were going to be higher. It looked like it was trending up for natural gas, electricity, but a lot of those came in under. We did knock out some expenditures and cap for equipment. That's why that $654,000 lower. And then a delay in some capital projects. So we lowered our transfer out by $1 million. So going to the projected year-end column, you see the 148.5. I mentioned with the revenues, we don't need to go back to the prior slide. It was $140 million in revenues, $148.5 million in projected year-end expenditures. So that's the $8.1 million in red that you see as a use or a net expenditures for the year. So we started the year with $49.8 million in reserves. We're going to use 8.1. So right now we're showing $41.7 million in potential year-end reserves with the audit still moving. So one last comment, and I don't want to get in too much in the weeds, but we had a revised use of reserves of 14.7 million. That was the original 8 million plus Owens Nursery of 5. We're going to end up using $8 million in reserves instead of the 14 million. Part of that's related to the extra revenues of 6 million. And part of it's related to the $500,000 we saved. We came in under budget. So $8 million use of reserves, 41.6 down between 40 and 41.6 million dollars in projected reserve balances for the end of FY25. And then as a reminder, already for FY26, council has approved a $10 million use of reserves for streetscape. So the $40 million comes down to 30. And then there was a budgeted use of $4 million already in the budget for the front and center project. So 40 million less 10 down to 30 less 4 for front and center. So just all things being held equal, we're down to like the $26 million in reserves. That's more of what the city manager and I have been talking about as far as like a target goes. It's kind of the upper 20 zone that kind of coincides with Moody's and a percent of revenue calculation for strong AA municipalities. Next slide, please. Don't have a slide for enterprise funds. I will say that last time we looked at the enterprise funds, the water revenue was 95% versus 100% for the year. But with the year-end accruals, because it's part of the billing that occurs in May, gets backdated into the prior fiscal year, water came in at 99% of revenue. So that the large rate increase, we're going to be watching that to see if there was any elasticity. In other words, people using less water because it's costing more. Right now, it doesn't look like that is the case related to FY26. So again, I'd like to remind the community, all the information is available on the website. I already mentioned this, but I'll close again by saying this. Next month, we'll dive into FY26. As a reminder, like sales taxes are 3 months in arrears, so we really don't have a lot of revenue activity the first couple months of fiscal year. So this is a kind of a standard reporting method that we came up with a couple years ago. Close out the year with 3 reports in a row and then move into FY26. And then again, the auditors will be here in November to give an audit report on FY25. Next slide, please. And take any questions or comments.
Thank you very much for your report. Questions or comments from members of the council? Member Ward.
I know we've spent a long time, but I just want to briefly check on a couple of things. On slide number 2, when you talked about the home rule, not home room, home rule sales tax, yeah, I think that I'd love to know what the impact of the increase of the online sales is, because to reiterate what the point that the city manager made earlier, right, about that having an impact on how much we're putting into the intergovernmental agreement. I don't need you to necessarily off the top of your head be able to quote it, but at some point it would be nice to know, because we're getting an increase as well. It's not just that we're putting more into the intergovernmental agreement, but we're also bringing more in, right?
Absolutely. And the plan is to share that with council. We currently have 4 months worth of data on that legislative change. So, you know, there was a change in 2021 where we started getting a component of our home rule related to this. And then this latest tightened it up more. So the first month, excuse me, was a 13.5% increase over prior year. I kind of went over these numbers, I think, previously. The second month was 9.5%, and then it shot up to 27% over prior year, and then 30%. So it'd be nice to have one more month since there's been some variability. But as of now, I will say it is material. You know, if you just mentally kind of do that average and you take those numbers up by, you know, those percentages, you're going to see that it's a material impact, positive impact. But we'll be communicating those in more detail to council and then the community.
And I'd love it if, I appreciate your reference to the work on Market Street and possibly that having an impact on the motor fuels tax. I'm wondering also that, you know, there's a new travel center out there west of the interstate.
Yep.
Yeah. And I'm just kind of wondering, is it possible to drill down that far and get a sense of the impact that those developments have?
Yes, I mean, we have to be
Yeah.
cautious about highlighting individual retail locations, where we can't actually do that due to the state of Illinois restrictions. But I can probably speak to more generality about that next time. But we do, since that is a local tax, it's easy to get visibility on it. We have reporting functionality for that.
Just 2 more things.
Sure.
One is I'd love to hear about or an update on where things stand with O'Neill Pool and the Aquatic Center this summer. I mean, it's been pretty hot and steamy, so I'm guessing that there's been a lot of traffic there. And then the last thing I just want to say is I really appreciate the intentionality that it sounds like you're approaching the reserves with. That's the kind of thing that personally I need to hear. You know, this is the target we're aiming at, and this is why, based on you know, investors and ratings and things like that, as opposed to just sort of throwing spaghetti at the wall and saying, here, we've got this much in reserve. And I really appreciate the intentionality.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And that's a frequent question, you know, like what's the reserve target? And there's different ways of asking that question. What do auditors require? Auditors don't require anything. There's no official standard. It depends, you know, like I attended a GFOA National, sorry to waste your time on this, but I attended a meeting just on that. And depending on like your geographical location, the risk you have related to hurricanes and this kind of thing, it can vary dramatically. GFOA used to recommend at least 2 months of expenditures on hand. So that's basically 18% of your budget. And then for Moody's, you know, there's a big range. It's like 15 to 35% of operating revenues that you should keep in reserve. So if you kind of split the difference between that, it ends up being that's where we're getting the calculation. So there's science behind it and a reference to that standard anyway.
Thanks.
Other members, questions? Just one question. In regards to the 1.3 million ambulance related generated by the fire department and the ambulance service, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Very-
That money goes back into the city's general fund for something directly to the fire department's budget, correct?
Yes, sir. That income statement exhibit is just the general fund. Yes,
And that's billed out to individuals transported, et cetera,
yes,
in their insurance, I'm assuming, if they have it.
yes, sir.
Thank you. I think that moves us to our city manager report.
All right.
I was going to say that without that, but go ahead.
Oh, there you go. All right. I thought you were going to overlook me. I just have a couple things before we start. In addition to calling up Billy Tias, there were a lot of people working on that parking plan. To Member Hendricks' comment, Sue McLaughlin and Russ Waller, our facilities manager, Phil Allen, our traffic engineer, did a yeoman's job really helping us with mapping out where we could add parking and many others. So I just wanted to say it was a true staff effort, and I really appreciate everybody helping us figure that out. Next slide. Just real quick, want to give an update on our continuous improvement initiatives that we've been working on. Our consultant, Ted Iverson, was here last week working with different directors. We had a group training on mapping out different processes. And just really one of the things Ted and I talked about is he's seeing a lot of excitement, as am I, from staff. And he noticed a big difference this time being in town and not having to kind of explain, why we're doing this, because people are already seeing the fruits of it and they're already, seeing the results. So just wanted to say that effort continues and we're continuing to see a lot of positive things out of it. Next slide. The Reconciled Church, again, unfortunately collapsed on July 9th. That site has now been cleaned and cleared up by Stark Excavating. My understanding is the fencing will be down tomorrow morning and all streets reopen tomorrow morning. So again, just wanted to shout out staff. A lot of interdepartmental work on this, a lot of great work, and appreciate all of their efforts, as well as Stark on this one. And then finally, the next slide, Phil. Happy to announce that the streetscape work phase 1 will start on August 4th. So next month, early in the month, we'll actually start to see construction work and work on this. So that's very exciting. Also wanted to clarify, when this project came forward, we talked about Public Works and Public Works doing some work on this. And we were saying Public Works and we were thinking parks laborers. So there was some confusion that was caused out of that. And it would have been hard for our Public Works crews to absorb more work. And I think a couple council members were asking and questioning that. And you were absolutely right. It would have been hard. Our parks laborers are going to be able, though, to fit this in and do the landscaping work. And then our Public Works crews will just do the normal work that they generally do and are expected to do. So just wanted to make that clarification. Appreciate the ability to clarify that. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you very much. In regards to a few comments from myself, first off, we want to remind everybody about the stakeholders meeting on July 30th, which will be at the Center for Performing Arts, I believe, 5 p.m. I think we have a slide regarding that. We sure do. And so please join us, council members, for that evening. No matter where your ward lies, we'd love to have you there. Next slide. A number of events that have been going on, not only this past weekend, but in the last week. And I want to thank, in particular, some council members that stepped up to some events. Councilman Dannenberger, Councilman Montney, and Council member Scott, who all were willing to step in. And it's really important, I think, for the business community to see this council show the deep appreciation for those who either celebrate an anniversary of how long they've been having a business in this community, or ribbon cutting of a new business. And so we certainly appreciate those who step in and help out to do that, to show our appreciation of business in this community. So also we had an event over, I think it was 99 years of a block party at Western Avenue Community Center, the oldest ongoing block party in the city of Bloomington, as well as during Pride Fest on Saturday. I was able to be part of and enjoy the entertainment by the Penguin Project in particular, with the number of friends that performed there. And so we enjoyed that as well. I also want to thank not only all of our groups, departments that are out there working in this heat, but especially when it comes to what's going on in our roads and our sidewalks and those particular projects. And one area that we have limited interaction with was when it comes to the state, on some of the state roads that come through this community. And we had an opportunity not too long ago to meet with some of IDOT's officials, in particular, Kenzel Garrett, who manages our region for us, as well as our city managers, McLaughlin and Tyus, and city manager Jurgens were all there. And we, even though we can't move projects because of the state on certain things, but we were able to negotiate and get to where we're getting some maintenance work done on those areas. And I've heard a lot of positive comments on those areas of state roads, in particular Empire and Locust Street. And I want to thank especially members that attended that, members Mosley and members Straza, for their input as well. And for all of this council trying to move forward on that particular, those initiatives. So with that, I want to again thank the council, and I believe that's all I have, unless there's members of the council that would like to have something to add to that.
Yeah, I
Member
would
Hendricks.
just reiterate a great Pride event that took place downtown, and appreciate city staff for all the work they did with security and garbage and everything. It's a major turnover to go from the downtown farmers market directly into Pride, and you know, it went with great success. Appreciated seeing the mayor and Aldermember Kearns, Ward, and Scott there, and appreciate that Jan Lancaster gave me the opportunity to speak as a LGBT elected official for the community and obviously for downtown.
If not, I believe that we at this point are going to adjourn temporarily for executive session. If I can get a motion to take us into executive session in regards to what is Section 2C 11 of 5 IL Illinois statutes to discuss pending litigation. So if I could have a motion to
I'll move.
Second to that motion. Second Straza, motion by Member Hendricks. And we'll go into executive session then at 7:47 PM. We have to vote on it.
I can call it real quick. Councilmember Kearns,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosley,
Yes.
Councilmember Motney,
Yes.
Councilmember Straza,
Yes.
Councilmember Hendricks.
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Yes.
Councilmember Scott.
Yes.
So with that, we'll go ahead.
Oh,
Madam
you're
Clerk,
fine. I
close
was
the
just
room.
yep, clear the room, and just wanted to point out that there'll be no additional consideration taken after the executive session. We'll just move to adjourn. Thanks.
Thank you. we are going to move to come back into regular session. And is there a motion in which to do that?
I move to adjourn, right?
I mean, adjourn. I said, we'll
Yeah.
come back in and then we're going to adjourn.
Second.
Second, by Member Mosley. And we're going to vote.
Yes.
Burns, Councilmember Mosley,
Yes.
Councilmember Motney,
Yes.
Councilmember Straza,
Yes.
Councilmember Hendricks, Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Yes.
Councilmember Scott.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Then that concludes the council meeting for Monday, July 28th.